Awesome. And so as you guys probably noticed these past few days, so we're going to talk about section 3. We're actually going to do a little bit of section 2. But these past couple days, you probably noticed I haven't been talking too much about Python. The real reason why is because I want to make sure you guys are all ready for basically the infrastructure of how things are going to go. If you're not set up on that part, it's a lot harder to move on into Python itself. The good thing is that if you guys all done the prelim work, you guys have been kind of at least diving into Python going in, and you can see definitely that in our sections like 3 and 4, we basically will go right into Python and it'll be pretty consistent going from there. And so yeah, so I want to share though real quick just some admin stuff. I'm going to share over here. Is this the right? I think that's the right window. Yeah, okay, cool. All my windows hop around whenever I share, so there you guys are. Okay, cool. So as you guys know, you can go to Learn Co and all this stuff, and I think I'm in the wrong, ignore this part right here. You guys won't have all these different cohorts to worry about. There's your guys's. So here's your homepage. So at the bottom of your homepage, hopefully you guys have all, who's kind of explored a little bit on it? Everyone's kind of seen what's on there? Cool. So just note that I'll kind of keep updating this as we go along. And so, of course, our calendar is here. I do have to add in our new study groups for, what's it called, for next week. So the way this will work is basically Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday will be our days of actual study groups. And usually I try to structure it where each day is corresponding to a certain section. Sometimes there's a bleed through like these past couple days have been. For the most part, I try to keep them isolated in that way. I won't go usually through the whole curriculum. Like the material, I try to keep stuff that's most relevant. I'm always trying to reform and see how things go. So feedback from you guys is always useful too. If you're like, hey, that study group was really great. Like, I really liked how you do this. Or like, hey, like, we didn't really like how this worked out. I'm very appreciative of that feedback. I might also make more of a, what's it called, a survey form just to kind of let you guys put that in anonymously if you don't want to like say this directly to me, because I know sometimes it can be intimidating. But for next week, know that these groups right here, was it what, August 20th through the 23rd, we'll keep it at our 1 p.m. Eastern time, 10 a.m. Pacific time, everyone in between. We have Mountain time and Central time in there too. But it'll be consistent through this point. And I think for the most part, at least when I did the survey out for everyone, it seems that that's where it's most consistent for everyone. I was actually really happy to see that almost everyone had that day. I think a couple people didn't have like Thursday or something like that they could make work. But I think talking after some people, you guys can make that work. So just know that our study groups will be Tuesday through Friday every week, that 1 p.m. time. We will have a time Friday. We don't have one this week because mostly it's our first week. It's a lot of meetings you guys had to go through these first few days. So, but on Friday, usually we have what we call like a Friday feelings time. And usually what that is basically a time for us to all meet and basically kind of talk and chat and just like basically just like shoot the shit, like say like, hey, like how is things going? You know, like things in life. We don't have to talk about data science. We can talk about data science if something interesting someone comes up with. A lot of times that happens with my groups where we ended up like talking about like, you know, data ethics and stuff like that that are outside of the curriculum. But it's a good time of thing to just relax. And I think it'd be really beneficial, but we won't have one this week. I'll set it up for next week. And I'll put out a little survey for say, hey, what time on Friday would work well? Just know that that Friday means that we're going to have our study group, which will be our normal 1 p.m. time. And then Friday, we'll have to sneak in somewhere throughout that day. Okay, cool. All right, and then a few things, some resources, right? So you'll see here if you guys have visited lately, I basically have this playlist. And usually what I do is per module, I'll make a playlist of our recordings. So you should see here are 2 different recordings. Yeah, we should only have 2 for our different study group sections itself. So this video itself will be on this playlist. That way you guys can find it. You also are welcome, like I keep all like my recordings on this specific channel. So I make them public so you guys can find them and everything like that too. Feel free to look through that, especially if there's a specific topic that we talked about. You're like, hey, I want to see how you explained it. You can do that. Of course, I always suggest going to the student resources because then you have hopefully like other instructors too. So maybe another instructor that you find explains it really well. I might even suggest a specific one from there. So of course this is useful, but at least for our own topics, our own recordings, you can find them all on this playlist here, and I'll keep updating this. Another part that I updated is orientation. So if you missed orientation, which I think everyone here made orientation. But if you wanted to watch through it again, at least the recording is here. Meet Your Classmates didn't record, so I'm actually going to delete this part. Our community talk is coming up. I think it shows August 22nd on here. Oh, maybe I didn't need to add that. All right, well, I believe it's August 22nd, so there's a career talk. I realized I need to add that to the calendar. So good note to have. Okay, so anyway, just keep going on to here. This is where I'll update the resources and such.
What is the community talk?
Yeah, so I can have more information about that. I should double check that's actually the right day. 22nd. You know what? I will have to come back to you guys to see what day that is. I don't have it on my calendar. Maybe it got moved. Okay. Well, basically, I think, yeah, I'm going to come back to that when I have more information for you guys. Sound good? But I think it's something where other cohorts and it kind of, yeah, I'll have more information because I'm not actually sure now that I'm thinking about it. I'm wondering if I'm mixing things up. But just keep an eye on this calendar. You can subscribe to it and everything like that. It'll be easy to find. Okay. Cool. And then, of course, curriculum. Curriculum will pop up like I showed before. I just want to keep showing you guys. Remember, 4 sections per week. So basically on that Tuesday, expect to find that, you know, for example, next one coming up will be section 5. Obviously, it's not there. I usually release it on Friday afternoonish. And that way you guys have the weekend to kind of get into it. I know practically it says Monday, but I say, like, why not have you guys be able to use that so that you guys can use the weekend? Because I know most people are like, oh, you know, sometimes I have some time. Just want to go through it. All right. Cool. Any questions about this homepage? Yeah,
I have a question. So in one of the lessons from section 3, it mentioned a resource for different mathematical notations, and it like refers to this PDF, and I just wasn't sure where that PDF was.
Okay. Do you know what lesson that was? Does anyone know?
Yeah, it's in the mathematical notation. One towards the very bottom. It refers to a PDF.
It's on the GitHub page.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sure.
Cool. Thanks, Carly. All right. So, oh, that's the notation right here. Yeah. And so that's a good,
okay.
yeah. And that's a good thing to note is that all of these things are always on the GitHub repo. This is more complete in a lot of ways. So just kind of be aware. So cool. Thank you for asking that. And Carly, thanks for chiming in to help out with that. Cool. So the next thing I want to show you guys, oh, this is one part I didn't update on our Learn Co homepage that I'm going to share with you guys. I don't remember if I have so much in my mind right now. I don't know if I shared out this link right here. This guy right here is just the repo that I use to do. I have multiple cohorts, so I have like all these lessons. So you'll see there's a lot of stuff on here that we haven't gone through. For the most part, for right now, what we've done is basically the Python basics. We'll lead into data science basics. But this is where like all those little notebooks I kind of show and stuff like that. So for example, yesterday we talked about GitHub, Git intro. This is where you can find it and clone it. I think I did mention this last time, but I'll put it as a resource on the actual homepage as well. This way, if you ever find code, you're like, oh, like I saw Victor put this specific thing, like I want to try that out. You know, you can clone it yourself and all that stuff. Okay. Cool. So we're actually going to go over some of that stuff today. So kind of going back into version control, and I'm going to set a firm time limit for me for only the next like until 10:30 for me. So the next 20 minutes to make sure you guys we get into the next subject too. Okay. And know that again, like GitHub, Git stuff is a lot to go through. I realized I mentioned last time there was a resource I used to, it's a free course through Udacity. It's like a little online course. I have a bunch of videos. I said it's kind of like, you know, kind of corny a little bit. They kind of like, oh, what should we do next kind of deal. Really great resource. I realized yesterday when I tried sharing it out, it doesn't exist anymore. At least it doesn't show up directly on there. But I have a workaround for you guys. So they do have public videos, but it's hard to figure out where the videos kind of step through. So I'm making guys a little playlist. So maybe over this weekend, you guys can kind of check it out and go through it. And I would highly suggest that because the more you're exposed to Git and the more like familiarity with it and get the concept of like what is Git and what are all these branches, what's going on, it'll be helpful. But main thing you guys have to remember for Git is that you're going to be doing, you know, Git add your files, Git commit, and Git push. And that Git push basically, you think of this as your cloud. So the thing is that this Git push part actually can be any kind of repo. It doesn't even have to be online. It can be, for example, on another computer that's like on a local network. Usually we talk about it as GitHub, but there's also other options. Like I think there is, like, for example, Git Bucket, or not Git Bucket. Oh shoot, I'm mixing words. GitLab. It's another repository where you can push your info into there. There's also Bitbucket. See, that's why I get confused. Bitbucket, which is, I think, by Atlassian, also a similar kind of thing. And they all have different like features and stuff like that. For the most part, I do recommend GitHub because it's kind of like the go-to for most open source projects. Most people will kind of like use that as kind of like your social network of like code repositories, code projects, and stuff like that. There's kind of, if, you know, however you feel. It used to be like more open. It's now owned by Microsoft. People have mixed feelings about it, but I mean, it's been pretty good. So I don't know. I think it will still be around for quite a long time in the future, even if it's owned by a different company now. But anyway, so I'm going to show you guys how to deal with doing GitHub. So main things that we're going to do is create a repo. So this is something I suggest you guys actually just practice doing and stuff like this. So I'm just going to GitHub here. I'm going to my profile. Your profile obviously will look different. Sometimes it takes a little time for me to load. There we go. And so I think I kind of showed you guys a little bit what the homepage looks like, right? So I said your main projects are kind of up here. You can actually pin specific ones that you care about. Otherwise, it just automatically picks the ones that you had done before. Over here, you'll have your contribution graph. Yours probably looks not nearly as green as mine right here. That's perfectly fine. Don't stress out about that. But basically, these represent all the little contributions you've done on GitHub. So as you make little changes on Git and like your repo and you push it up to here, these contributions show up. And this is where I'm always like, I like to say, this is kind of showing you like, how active are you? Like, how active are you coding? And this is kind of like a real quick shortcut for recruiters to really say, hey, like we have, you know, like, is this person been doing work or not? It's not the perfect metric. It's not the greatest thing, right? But it is something that people will tend to do and just check out. So one thing I do recommend though, is instead of forking for like those learn lessons and stuff like that, that you can clone them yourselves or download those files and actually create a repo. There's nothing wrong with forking, but there's one slight issue there. If you create a fork and you make changes and you push it up into your repo, which are all legitimate changes, it doesn't show up on the contribution graph, which is not by itself like a big deal. Like that's perfectly fine. Like no one really cares too much about like those individual parts. But I like to think of it as like, if you're making changes for yourself, like if you're making changes doing code, you want that to show up for other like recruiters and stuff to say, oh, look, this person's been active and been doing a lot of coding. So this is my suggestion. This is my personal suggestion. It's a little different from what the curriculum suggests, but I'm going to show you guys what that looks like. Okay, so I'm going to kind of go through what a fork is, right? So one thing you can do is like, if I go to a certain lesson, let's go ahead and go to this, let's go to a more interesting lab, say functions argument lab. So this is in section 3. So I go to here, I click on this little icon for GitHub, right? It takes me to their repo. You can see that right here. And what I can do, I can just click this fork button. This is what the curriculum kind of shows through. I click on this guy. It'll say, all right, I have multiple people, like things I work for. So I'm just using my personal account, and it'll make, it basically copies that repo into my own repo. So you can see here on the very top is that this is my own repo. And in fact, if I go over to my profile, I guess I can just come right here and refresh it. If I go to my profile, you'll see a little, like right now there's nothing. And then now that I forked it, you'll see, it'll take forever, come on. Okay, there it is. So you can see there's a little contribution here. I click on here, you can see, it'll say created a repo. Where is it? Oh, there it is. No. Okay, created a repository. And this is because I forked it over. And you can see that little symbol for forking. So I created a new repo and it's forked. And you can actually see it's forked from this repo. So this way it's a good reference to say, oh, it's a continuation from this. The one issue here is that if I make new commits on here, it won't show up on my contribution history. It still exists on there. People can see the specific project and see what commits you've done specifically, but it won't show what you've done. So you could, for example, clone from here, work on it, git push and all that stuff like you normally would. So I'll quickly just show that going through. This is going to be a review, so I'm not going to walk you guys all completely through it, but let's go ahead and do a clone of this repo. So remember, this is already forked. Actually copy this, there we go. Okay, and so pwd, let's go, we'll just do it in here. So I'm going to do a git clone of this guy. And so this has my stuff in there. And then if I actually go to my main page right here, you can see there's the repo that I forked, right? And you can see all that stuff in here. So let's say I want to make some changes. Like, okay, let's say I have this guy in here. Like, all right, I'm just going to go ahead and just like run this, for example. Like, cool. I'm just going to go ahead and just delete these things. I'm just making changes, just random changes. And so I save this, okay? And so actually now I want to make that change, that commit to that change, right? I can actually do git status, and we should see, oops, I have to go into the actual directory, dsc. Cool. So I'm in that directory now. You can see here, I'm in. I can do now git status, and we should see that a file has been changed. I'm going to go ahead and git add index right there. I can now see that it's ready to be committed, right? So this is in my staging area. So now I do a git commit. I'm going to do, well, sorry, as force of habit. So I'll git commit -m, and then I'll say, you know, basic change. Be more descriptive in real life. So now I have my committed change, and I do git status. You'll see that everything's clean. You see my git log now. You will see now that this was the last commit that I forked it from. So these aren't these for me. You can see the author is Matt Stetz, right? For here, you see the author, Mr. Geislinger. That's just my profile name. And you can see here is that I can, this is my actual commit. So now I want to connect it, or not connect it. I want to sync it up with what's on GitHub. Basically that origin master. I want to push that up into there, into the cloud. So I'm going to clear this out. I can do a git push. And if you want to do specific origin master, but by default, it'll just do git push. It'll work fine. And note that because I cloned it, I don't have to worry about setting up which one's my origin, you know, and all those different URLs. It knows automatically. And you can see here, success, it wrote to here. And now if I go to my repo here, so remember this is the forked repo. If I refresh this, you'll see from 5 commits, I'll say 6. And you can see what's changed. You can see that's my basic change. I can see there's a new commit. You can see these are from like Matt Stetz, a couple of them from Laura, Mike Kane. So these are from what I forked. This is after my fork. This is from today. And cool, awesome, I made a change. However, if I go to my main profile page and I try to refresh, you will see that it will only show up 1 contribution still. So you'll notice that it's like, hey, I made it, I contributed to it. It just shows I created a repository. And that's because basically commits on a fork for GitHub don't add to your contribution graph. So if you only do forking and then you do a whole bunch of work on your fork, right? And it never gets like merged and stuff like that. So like you basically only have your stuff on your fork. You did all this work, but it won't show up on here. So basically you will only have like little contributions of saying that you actually had created a repo, stuff like that. And that's, you want to show more than that. So this is my suggestion. This is the alternative way, and this is what I would do. So I would go ahead and do a new repository. So on this top right, easy way. You could also do github.com/new. I think the curriculum mentions that, but either way works fine. I name it my repository. I might say like Flatiron mod 1 lab or something like that. So I'm saying, okay, this is where all my labs are going to go here. And I might say like work from Flatiron Labs. Oops. So I might do something like this, right? So I can do this part. I can make it public. I always suggest make it public. There's no, you can technically make it private, but classically GitHub has always been public. You can pay for private, and when Microsoft bought it, they made it so you can make as many private as you want. I say the only reason why you'd make it private is that there's specific data that you don't want, or code that you don't want other people to see because it's sensitive. For the most part, people understand GitHub is kind of more of like you kind of just playing around and seeing how things work and stuff like that. So no one's looking for it to be super clean and, you know, pristine. So make it public, that way people can see that. Like, oh, you've been doing stuff. All right, I won't initialize with anything. So I'm going to create repository. And so with this guy now, I have a new repository. It's completely empty. There's nothing in here. So one thing I can do is create a new repository on the command line. Since there's nothing on my own computer, I'm just going to go ahead and just literally copy all of this guy. I'm going to go into my terminal. I'm going to make sure I'm in the right directory. So you can see here, I'm in Flatiron. So that way it's nice and easy for me to copy in here. I'm going to do git clone. Oops, I'm sorry. See, I did that wrong. That's not going to work, is it? Oh, did it? Okay. Sorry, I messed up the very first line, but it still worked fine. I just didn't make an echo. So let's see. So let's do ls. You can see I should have, oh, I know what happened. Okay, ooh, I made a mistake. I'm gonna go up one level. So ignore a little bit, pretend we're going back from fresh, right? So I'm in my workspace. I'm gonna do, copy this whole thing right here. So let's double check that we're doing. We're gonna do echo this guy, this guy, this guy, this guy, this guy. So the problem is I did, as you might have caught on, is I didn't make a new directory for my repo. So I'm gonna actually make a directory in here. So I'm gonna make directory, let's call it like Flatiron, oops, mod1, what did I call it? I should probably use the same words, huh? Flatiron mod1 labs. So I'm gonna go into there. So now I'm in this directory, oops. I'm in this directory, and now I can go ahead and copy and paste all that stuff I had. So I'm just gonna paste it since it's in my clipboard, and git push right there, rejected. Oops, jeez. What did I have wrong here? Updates were not rejected because the remote contains that you didn't. Yeah, so I probably should slow down a little bit. See what my git status is. Okay. Okay. I have this guy in here. Let's do Git Pull. It's saying I have stuff already in there. Oh, I know what happened. Well, that's annoying. Okay, because I made a directory in there before. Okay. Well, that's fun. We're going to do some live coding. And do a merge request. Okay. Git pull. Sorry, everyone. I feel bad because I should have done this better. But if you copy that correctly, pretend that happened. Okay. We would have a repo with this kind of stuff in here. I know I messed up a little bit. I don't want to go through the whole thing. I said I have 5 more minutes left. Okay. So let's see it. Where are we? We're in my workspace. Let's go to Flatiron. And sorry. I am removing some stuff because I don't need this to be a Git repository. What's my issue? All right, let's go ahead and make a directory. And we will call it Flatiron mod1 labs, is what we called it. I'm going to go into Flatiron mod1 labs. Okay, and so now what I'm going to do, since I have it in here already, obviously I could have just cloned it. Okay, that's fine. Pretend if you followed the directions and you took your time, like I should have done the first time, this would be working fine. I'm just going to go ahead and clone this into here. So that's going to clone in here. So now I have my Flatiron mod1 labs in here. And so now you would have, you could put in your own stuff in here. Since I'm on Mac already. Oh, you can't see this. I just realized. You can't. If you're on Windows, you can, or if you're on Mac, you can see this part. So I'm going to go up one, and we are in. Where are we? Sorry, everyone. Oh, this is. There it is. Flatiron mod1 labs. So I made it within it. So this is my directory in here. So now I can add new stuff into here if I clone it or download it. The thing is, though, one issue you might have is that if you try to directly go into here and it's like, okay, cool, like I'm in Flatiron mod1 labs and I want to go to the Learn curriculum, I go to a specific lab, and then you could try to do like a clone download yourself. The problem is if I do this and try to do within this directory, so you can see I'm in this this repo, so git status. If I try to do a git clone of this thing, what will happen is that it will clone in there, you can work on it, but when I push it up, what will happen is that it's going to do something funky, something called like a sub module, which is not going to be exactly what you want. So this is something I realized with another cohort. I'm like, oh, like if you want to make your own repo of your lab work in here and have it all self-contained, you have 2 options. One is that, well, 3 options. One, you could just fork it, like the curriculum shows you how to do. That's the simplest way, but there's a disadvantage where you don't necessarily have it on the contribution graph. Option 2 is that you literally clone it and then make it like make a new repo yourself. So make a new repository, upload that stuff onto GitHub, and then do that yourself and make a new repo for each lab, which isn't the worst thing, but it does mean that you have by the end of this course, you're gonna have like 700 repos just from like your lab stuff. And that might be cluttering a little bit of your whole like GitHub profile. When you think of your GitHub profile is supposed to be kind of like your portfolio profile, it might be just be harder for people to find stuff. So the other option is to make your own repo and put the work in there. The problem is that if you do this, you could technically do it, but I'll show you what this looks like. If you do git clone this here, and then you'll see git status, you'll see that I have a new thing in here. I'll do git add dsc, git push, and you'll see now is that in my repo that's up here, you will see that there is a new, wait, is this the right one? Yeah, right. Did I not finish pushing? Oh, I didn't. Git commit. That was a test for you guys, if you guys didn't notice. So I'll say like new lab. Okay. And then say, okay, we made this a product there. And I'll go git push. Now it will push up to there. And you'll see here though, when it gets pushed here, it'll have a funky looking thing. And you'll see, oh, good, it actually worked here. Oh no. Oh. Okay, never mind. Maybe this might work fine. I used to have an issue where this would treat it as a submodule. So that would be the simplest one. Basically, is to just clone it directly in your repository that you have. So remember on here, I have this repository, okay? And you can see in my Git log, I have this new lab in here, and you can see ls-l. You can see I have my README file, so you can talk about saying, oh, this is from, you know, Flatiron, describing what this is, and then here's your actual labs in here. So you can order this however you want. And then from here, you actually see my Flatiron labs. I can go into here, I can make changes. I think this should be fine. This is the part that I'm wondering if maybe I'm just making some quick changes. So I make some changes on there. I go ahead and save this. Can I save it? Okay. And then if I do git status, you'll see there's a mod change. I'll do git add dsc. Okay, so basically it's saying, oh, I made this change in index.ipnb. You see git status, git commit -m, change index. So make a little commit. This obviously would be something relevant to you guys. I do that, do a git push, and now I'll be in my repository. And so we should see a new commit on here. So it'll be 3 commits. You'll see that this will change, this will stay the same, and we'll have a new part in there. Yes, okay. Interesting. I wonder if they changed something since I last done this. Okay, well, that's all you gotta do then. If you wanted to make your own repo, I would say make your own repo specifically for Flatiron. You can make it like Flatiron specific to mod 1. You can do, if you really wanted to, you can make a Flatiron, you know, like let's say your labs for section 1, section 2, section 3, all different repos. I would suggest maybe condensing it. You could even make one big Flatiron, just like school, and say Flatiron or something like that, or however you want to phrase it, like boot camp or whatever, and then put in your each individual like module in there and break it down into this hierarchy within one repo. And this way, it's a little more obvious of that, like, oh, you've been doing work, because you'll see now, if I go over to my GitHub profile, I'm at 31, off by a minute, so that's okay. All right, so you can see now is that my contributions actually do show up here. And so you'll see that I created a repository, but I also added within here. If I expand this out, oops, no. You can see I did 3 commits in here. So it actually shows I had commits within there versus like it being just like not counting at all in my contribution graph. So that's my suggestion. If you need help with this, which I know we kind of went through real quickly, just let me know. I can kind of walk you guys through that part because I did go through it really quickly. But I hit a few snags in there, so I'm sure you guys might hit in a couple, and that's perfectly fine. Sometimes it can be kind of confusing to get through it. But anyway, I just showed you how to create a repo. You get cloned from your repo. You can also do it from a local, which I was trying to show you at first, but I messed it up halfway through it. Basically, if you already have something on your computer and you want to say, oh, I want to make this down to a GitHub repo or a Git repo, you can do a git init, add your stuff, commit, basically make your first commit. And then you would sync this up with a GitHub repo. You would make a new repo that's empty and push this. So this actually happened if I did a new repo. I'm going to make something up real quick so I can I don't have a repo containing that. So you can see here, that's the second part. If you already have stuff on your computer, all you have to do is, and you have been doing Git already, and then you're like, okay, now I want to sync it up with GitHub. You can do this part, and this will sync it up with GitHub now. Now it's saying, okay, this is how you connect it with the cloud, essentially. Okay. So those are.
Question.
Yeah, go ahead.
So could I do this process and could I create a new repo just locally on my machine, drag all my files into it, and then push that up to GitHub?
Yes.
Okay, that sounds way easier than what I was thinking about moving things individually. That sounds totally doable.
Yes, and this is where like I'm using the terminal because that's kind of just like I'm trying to get you guys a little used to it, but you can absolutely just do this on your normal like drag and drop files and folder, and then do the git add, git and commit and git push on the terminal. So you can see I did a whole bunch of junk and stuff like that. And if you're not used to it, it might be particularly intimidating. Like there's just a bunch of text, like you can see this whole wall of text, right? Like, I don't know what's going on. So you're perfectly fine to drag it around. And then as you get used to it, you might get used to saying, okay, now I can kind of move this in the terminal and stuff like that. Yeah, but the main thing is doing the git on the terminal. Now I will kind of add a little bit off to the side is that if you have a Mac and Windows, there is a tool called that GitHub provides that allows you to do this UI side. I would strongly suggest not using that. And it's not because it's bad, but because I think it's a good practice to get the terminal part. And it is tougher, but it's definitely useful. Again, I will try to share that resource out for you guys, that playlist, so you guys can go through it. I think they do a great job. Honestly, probably a better job than I just did, because I could definitely had a few things not go through. But I would recommend it. And you can, it's a YouTube video. You could probably like 2 times speed if you really wanted to, or skip around and pause it and such. Okay, cool.
Victor, if right now, like my GitHub is really messy with everything individually, like you were saying, is there a way, and we don't have to do it now, of course, but can I like reorganize it?
Yeah, the short answer is like yes, but it'll take a while. And what I would probably suggest, since you guys just started, like don't worry about it right now and go back to it later. So for example, you can go to your repository, and let's say, for example, like that ASDF that I just made, you can go into, there it goes, takes a while for it to load. I can go into this repository, I can go into settings, and I know this is recorded, so you guys can probably check this out afterwards. And basically I can go ahead and scroll all the way to the bottom here to the danger zone, okay? And literally says, all right, you can make it private, transfer it, archive this repository, or delete this repository. So if you're like, I don't really need this anymore, you know, it's absolutely not necessary, you can click delete ASDF, and then that will, is that right? Oh, it's ADSF, okay. And then you guys type in here, it's kind of like, I understand the consequences, delete this repository. Oh no, okay, and then it's gone. And then it asks for your password. I'm not even gonna put in my password now because it's so long. But like you could do that and delete it, but you'd have to do that for each individual repository. GitHub purposely makes it more difficult for you to do that. But so for right now, I'd say just ignore that part and just start from wherever you are now, and just organize from there. And then you can always go back and like, you know, clear out stuff that you're like, oh, this is complete junk, I don't really care to show this anymore. When you have like a free weekend or something, like just go through your repositories and clean it up. Cool. All right, cool. Any other questions? These are all really great questions, by the way. So especially considering I went through stuff really quickly and not the best, probably organized in that way. Okay, cool. So anyway, these are kind of like your changes. This is kind of on the repository, so kind of quick, like Git Pull. So Git Pull is if you make a change on your GitHub repo, you can do Git Pull. And like I imagine it, like imagine like the cloud. This is the best way I can think of it. It's like the cloud, the website, GitHub is up here, and you are either pushing your stuff up to the cloud or you're pulling it down from above from the cloud. So that's kind of like the way you can think of that terminology. It's not the perfect analogy, but it's close enough. Okay. There is a section about GitHub branches and GitHub collaboration in the thing. I'm going to hold this off because I think that's a lot for you guys to handle at once, especially because, to be quite honest, you don't really know you need to know it right now since you guys aren't really necessarily doing collaboration. This is something that we can talk more about in the future. And then honestly, there's other resources that are going to do a really great job explaining this too. This can get very complicated. It's very useful. I don't want to like put out like, oh, like don't do this, but this is very useful when you're making new stuff, but it does take a long time to understand it. And so I want to save this off versus like talking about Git all day, because we could do this like probably for another 3 sections if we wanted to. So hopefully you guys are cool with that. Cool. All right. But know that this information is up on that resource that we'll share out.